God, that is a snoozer. Anyway, welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm, the sister show of the main show, The Outer Realm, which airs on Wednesday and Thursday evenings. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. So today's going to be a lot of fun because my dear friend Mark Olly is back. Woo! Yes, we always have so much fun. And today, of course, in keeping with, the tradition of the month, we're going to be talking about Christmas. But we're going to be getting into more of a, discussion about, ancient times and the dark roots of Christmas and ancient folklore. Because gotta keep it in sync with the show. And we like to talk a little bit about high strangeness, but we also love ancient history and things of that nature. So it's going to be super interesting. And, we're going to go into some interesting places. So remember, dark folklore, it all began long before Christmas as we know it. So we're going to be talking about the celebrations of Yule and where it began with the pagans, and all of these traditions, even those that we honor today, came from someplace that you may not think. It's not all what you think. And that's what makes it so much fun. Anyway, without further ado, Mark Olly, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah.
I think it's two firsts today. First of all, I've never tackled Christmas before. And secondly, it's the first interview with no beard.
No beard. I know. It's a beard of knowledge. That's the problem.
Yeah, I got fed up with being accused of being Santa Claus, so I'm still on top of it. Well, there we go.
I'm thinking, I haven't tackled Christmas. What am I going to say? I don't know. Put your beard back.
I know. I should have been on with like one of them pointy hats and a red shirt and a Coca-Cola sponsorship across it. But anyway, that's another story. We'll come back to that one.
Oh yeah. We actually politely declined sponsorship.
Well,
so, but
apparently Santa didn't. So, but like I say, I'm going to come back on that one.
I like that one. Yeah. I like that one. Wayne says you're looking all trim and dapper.
Hey.
So I know. So everyone chiming in. Hello, Heidi. Hello, Carol Ann. Great topic. It is a great topic. It'll be fun. And we've got Wayne saying hello to both of us. Hey. So I know. So it's going to be good. People are starting to come in.
Good.
So, and Mark, it's evening because Mark is out your neck of the woods, out there. Hello, Mark. Hello. Who was a Coca-Cola girl back in the day? Shh.
Ooh, they're running
dark
ahead.
origins.
Yeah, they're running ahead now.
I know.
Giving away secrets.
I know. It takes, thanks for that. Just, telling everybody. So, hey, Phil. Yeah. Yes, long time ago, since I was one of those way back stories. But yes, I was a Coca-Cola girl.
Yay.
Cool swagger and stuff. All this cool swag. Anyway, all right. So, of course, Christmas is not, the Christmas we know today is not the Christmas of yesteryear or the winter celebrations and so on and so forth. So where do you want to start with this?
Oh gosh.
Pagans, solstice, where do you want to go?
Well, I suppose I'll start at the beginning. I mean, there's always been a winter solstice.
Yes.
That's where it all starts, isn't it, really? Because 21st of December, you've got your shortest day, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, shortest day of the year. And that's that's really what people notice the most. I mean, prehistoric, sites, monuments, whatever, they are all aligned to the stars, to the heavens. So something like that, which is in celestial time, it's not going to go unnoticed, So yeah, I think that's where it begins. We've just moved it to another date.
We did. There's a lot of things that we messed around with, but realistically, it all goes back to the winter solstice.
Yeah, that's the beginning.
Putting everything in bed for the winter, having the bonfires, celebrating, appeasing the spirits, and getting together with our neighbors in the villages and coming together. I mean,
well, it's kind of the death of the old year and the beginning of the new year. So it's not just any old solstice. It's actually the death of one year as it goes down on its dying cycle, and then, excuse me, the birth of the next year. So if you're going totally, according to nature, if you're following the natural, the rhythms and patterns of planet Earth, then it's really important. It's a phenomenally important date.
Yes.
The 21st. Obviously, the church couldn't come along and park another date over the top of that, because the 21st, of December, or 22nd, give or take, whenever it is, the actual celestial solstice, they couldn't park anything on top of that. It's been there forever, So as we're sort of, rolling into, December now, Christmas, if you like, it's like a big thing. It stretches. I mean, in ancient times, it would have started around about the 19th, 20th, depending on when the solstice was. It would stretch right over the solstice, right over what we now know as Christmas. It swallows up Hanukkah. It swallows up Saturnalia, which was a Roman festival. It swallows a load of those up on the way, but then it doesn't actually fizzle out till we get what we now get, which is the calendric New Year. So we kind of go whizzing into the next year. It's a block. It's a block of about 2 weeks. And if you really get sort of, finicky about it, then 16th of January, that was the old Celtic New Year / Christmas. So you could keep it going if you wanted. I mean, why not keep it going for 4 weeks?
I know,
weeks,
but some of them did.
They did,
just for that. I mean, we're also in and around the time, I think, of Saturnalia, right? The Roman pagan festival in the wintertime. And this went on for like what? Quite a while.
750 years, I think. That's how long the Romans, 800 years. So I mean, that's like, begins around about the 16th, 17th, and then it runs all the way through to the 23rd, 24th.
Yeah.
And it was the #1 most popular Roman winter festival. There was nothing that come anywhere near it. And they just went nuts. They went absolutely bonkers. So a lot of the things we have at Christmas now, like loads of food, loads of alcohol, time off work, all that sort of it. I suppose you could even, modern day versions of gods. People kind of do certain things at this time of year. And that's really the Roman Empire. That's the reason why. So we're getting more specific now. We've moved away from, Celts, Druids, etc. They carried on the 21st, 20th, 21st, 22nd. They didn't care about the Romans. They just put theirs in the middle of it. But the Romans, in a sense, adopted that because obviously it's universal. It's
like everywhere. A blended tradition sort of thing.
Well, yeah, and it's like I say, it's based on a celestial calendar, not just an earthly one. So somewhere in the middle of that, 17th to 23rd, you've got the actual 20th, 21st, you've got the solstice. So all of that, kind of got swallowed up. It was, I think we've lost the importance as well, because what they would do at that time of year, and this is European wide, it's right across the board, they would tend to use up what they didn't think would last through the winter. So, all your livestock that was too sickly, all your food that was starting to go off, stuff you'd put aside in the autumn, like apples and stuff like that, the decay had started to set in by round about now. So what they would do is they would then have this whopping great blowout in the middle, which would then mean that if you were fairly fit and well, you got plenty of food. So you've got chance to survive now through to the spring. And then in a spiritual nature, that's the death of the old year. You're using up the old resources. The old resources are dying. As soon as you get into like 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, the days are getting longer. The sun is rising and that energy is coming back up again. And now you're looking forward. So you almost, I mean, a lot of the festivities, right across worldwide, the festivities were to give the sun an extra push, to push it back up into the sky and fire it up and get it going. So, I mean, if you were going to have a party, I mean, the classic time to have a party in the year would be now, you know, in ancient times. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, now this is it. Now is the time. I mean, middle of summer, you're fine. You know what I mean? You can go and sit on a beach with a bowl of strawberries.
Right.
It's fine, you know. Middle of winter, you need a smile on your face. You need to do something happy, you know. Crack a bottle of mead and, you know, get a big bonfire going to keep warm and eat lots of food, you know.
Yeah, but you need to have something to excite you down to those cold winter months. But
yeah,
I find this was also a time, it wasn't so much, I mean, the pagan roots go really deep, you know, because you have the Roman festivals and you got Yule, which is the Norse and like Germanic feasts and solstice and honoring the gods like Odin, right?
You're creeping forward in time now because early Viking Danish culture, which is your Saxons, your Angles, your Jutes, your Frisians, they overlap the end of the Roman period. In fact, they acted as mercenaries for the Romans. But if you want to go truly Viking, then you're looking at the Eastern Roman Empire when the Romans split and everything changed. You know, and you ended up with Russia, of course. Russia means Viking. So it's the land of the Vikings. That's literally what Russia means. So that explosion, I mean, that's an interesting one, actually, because one of the things they used to do, they would have a temple. And of course, again, right across the board, midwinter solstice, everybody keeps this festival. They would all gravitate to this central temple. And I think it's possibly the goddess Hel is the one that is prominent at this time of year. And in the middle of the temple would be a tree. So you can see where I'm going with this.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a stocking great big tree right in the middle. And guess what? They would decorate the tree and they would put gifts and offerings and etc. below the tree. So when, you know, Queen Victoria in her infinite wisdom decided she was going to import a spruce, you know, bring a tree here from her Germanic lands where the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha family come from, she brought this over and decorated a tree over here. And everybody just went, oh, what a fantastic idea. We must do that. You know, I mean, bearing in mind that Victoria came to the throne in 1825. She was only a young girl. So all the way through Victorian period, we had this huge development of, you know, Christmas cards, certain types of alcohol, trees, you know, and the Victorians researching stuff, they resurrected a lot of stuff. So they resurrected things like the Yule log, you know, the holly and the ivy, wreaths on your door to ward off evil, you know, etc., etc. Not entirely successful, I hasten to add, because they do still have Mary Lloyd, which is the horse's head on a pole. That's Viking as well. That's Norse. That's one of Odin's horses, and it rides around at this time
from the Wild Hunt.
From the Wild Hunt, banging on people's doors. So, you know, that's the Viking side of it. Actually, I think probably most of what we associate with Christmas now has, you know, Norse Viking roots. Even, dare I say it, Santa Claus. You know, he's St. Nicholas. He's
St. Nicholas, yes.
Yeah, he's revered quite highly in most of the Nordic countries, you know, and Scandinavian countries. You know, that's kind of where he comes from. Oh, 4th century Greek bishop. That's what he was. So he's very early, actually. 4th century. You're going all the way back into the let's get this right, the 300 to 400 AD period. That's late Roman. So actually, Santa Claus is late Roman. So yeah.
Right, there we go. So you see, I mean, it goes back. I just love how all of these cultures, because now we've spanned, you know, from pagan times into time of Constantine, you know, when everything, the Christianity comes into the forefront, and then we're just kind of getting into, I mean, the Vikings and the Germans, and
Yeah,
getting into like the belief system to me, like of Odin's Wild Hunt, which acted a little bit like the Santa figure with Odin, because children would leave gifts and they would leave food for the steeds,
that's it.
and
And you at that particular time of year, you can hear this, there's something's going on.
yeah.
And they went, just to be on the safe side, we'll swap that for reindeer. So now when the kids are there and they can hear the wind howling, and in the wind you can hear this, oh, that's Santa and the sleigh, It's not Odin and his 8-legged horse. That's a bit scary, that,
That is a bit scary.
I mean, the original Santa, the original colours were brown, green and white, which are the colours of winter. And of course, it's only, what was it, Coca-Cola in the 1880s that decided to make him red.
Yes.
And he's been red ever since. It's one of those.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. I
which of course you'd know, having an association with Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's brought it completely up to date, hasn't it? There you go.
All right. On to something else. No.
Right. Moving quickly on.
We'll talk Krampus.
Okay.
Not Coca-Cola.
Now, he's the serious side of where the Viking legends went. You know what I mean? He's also the other side of the coin, if you like, because St. Nicholas is this nice, fat, chubby, delivers presents and all the rest of it. Krampus comes after those that have been bad. You have been bad. You are a bad kid. You're going to get chucked in Krampus's sack, and he's going to whip you, probably with, hazel. A hazel whip. He'll get you and take you away and do nasty things to you before bringing you back. So he's this kind of devil, demonic, goat-headed horns, shaggy, beastie thing.
Because didn't they think he was believed to be the son of the Norse god of the underworld, Hel?
Yeah, again, that's what I said. Hell, hell's associated with this time of year a great deal. So really, that's where it goes back. So it's easy to look at Krampus and forget that, you're talking over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
1,200, 1,300 years, that image of Krampus has been around. That having been said, literally, St. Nicholas is older, but only by a smidgen. They pushed two developing strands together, really, to produce the Nordic version of Christmas, the good and evil, the dichotomy. That's how they did it. I mean, over here in Britain, what they used to say was, if you were bad, instead of Santa Claus delivering you presents under the tree, you would get a bag of cinders or a bag of coal out of the fire. In the old days, when everybody had real fires, if you were a really bad kid, you'd get this bag full of, leftover waste product out of the fire.
So which again, harsh.
It's fires, isn't it? Fires of hell. It's Krampus, it's the devil. It's that's a very late version. It's a very late tradition of something that actually goes back a long way.
That's a good cop, bad cop, right?
Well, the reason I remember that is that for 1 year, my dad actually did that to me. We used to have a real Christmas tree. And we had a real fire and stuff. We're going all the way back to the 1960s. But my mum and dad were products of the 1930s. And I was particularly bad 1 year. And I got a bag, a scruffy, grotty Tesco carrier bag or whatever, full of rubbish out of the fire. That's what I got, and nothing else. I was absolutely mortified till they relented. I mean, presents were hidden somewhere else.
Let's see. In Italy, Phil says, if you're a bad kid, you get coal on January 6th by a witch named La Befana.
Yeah. Now that again, same tradition, but just the date has moved. Yeah.
Yeah, this is true.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've got the old joke of writing your Christmas wishes off to Satan, haven't we? Because you're dyslexic.
He said, great. Yeah. That's awesome.
Like the dyslexic Satanist that sold his soul to Santa.
Yeah. Well, I think the church even tried to abolish Krampus and totally banish the Krampus celebrations, right? Because of his resemblance, of course, to the Christian devil.
Yeah.
But yet, look, Krampus still going on today. Krampus festivals.
Well, yeah, the quote Christian countries just didn't really take that on board. So, a lot of European, American, some of the continental countries, just Krampus is just unheard of, and for us really in the UK, it's almost like a new discovery. Somebody on YouTube one day put up the Krampus Fest in one of the German towns. There's all these things that look like Wookiees with horns, walking down the street. And everybody in this country just went, yes, that's hardcore, we're going to have some of that, So here's a challenge. I'm just waiting for someone in the UK to come up with a Krampus reenactment group, because I've got a job for them at this time of year if they do.
Yeah.
So, I did a Christmas fair this last week, and they're looking for Krampus. So, there we go. But no, it didn't really take off over here. But certainly, yeah.
Different times, because he takes off just fine now. Let me tell you something.
Everybody loves it now.
I know they do. They get right into it. But even the church had like its dark part of all of this, because isn't that when they had like the massacre of the innocents, the biblical story of King Herod ordering the slaughter of all male infants, Bethlehem, to kill the newborn Jesus? Like, isn't this somewhere around the same idea?
Well,
same time?
Yes and no. There's a yes and a no. Just before we went live, we were talking about the way that basically the whole timetable, the whole biblical thing is just completely screwed up. It's gone, south really quickly. There was a monk in about 542 AD that recalculated Christ's birthday and all this birth year, and he got it wrong by about 7 to 10 years. And he got the season wrong as well, because there's no way at this time of year you're going to have shepherds watching the flocks, on the hillsides of Bethlehem. It's nonsense, because that's spring. It's set in the spring, so their spring out there is around about March, April. And the year that it actually happened in, because we've got this from the Chinese because of the comet, on their comet records, it looks like it was about 6.5 BC. So actually he's born round about middle to end of March in 6.5 BC. So all this nonsense about way in a manger, and you've got shepherds and wise men and snow, and it's rubbish, absolute rubbish. The shepherds and wise men came at different times. The possibility the wise men, there were more of them than 3, and some of them could have been female. So there's one that's a real head popper. There's no snow in Bethlehem at all. It's a hot country. It doesn't happen, at Christmas. It wasn't a stable. It was a cave. Chances are it was a byre for keeping animals, which was usually caves. So, the whole 9 yards, everything, the fluffy angel things, and it just comes from somewhere else. It's a completely different tradition. It doesn't really have any foundation in biblical stuff at all, which tickles me up. Because you've got the church has this fantastic, let's all do Christmas thing, and then as soon as Halloween comes around, they hammer Halloween like it's Lucifer incarnate.
And it's more pagan and dark at Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas is worse. And at least Halloween, you're honouring the dead who've passed before you. It's the Day of the Dead. It's and you've got All Hallows. You've also got All Saints the next day, which is a proper Christian festival. It goes all the way back to the Roman times. So actually, Halloween, it's the usual, switcheroony. It's the smoke and mirrors, where the one that actually is the rubbish one is the one that for some reason gets all the promotion and the thumbs up. And then the one that actually does have some decent meaning and, is meaningful gets, slagged off. So I'm a big fan of Halloween, but not of Christmas.
Yeah. I love Halloween as well. Now, there's a theory in a paranormal standpoint. Isn't the veil they say, Halloween, All Hallows Eve, the veil is the thinnest. Is the veil not technically, truly the thinnest around this time of year?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, if you follow the magical traditions and whatnot, the sort of the bells of midnight, when you get the 12 chimes of midnight on the 31st, going into the 1st, that's when the veil is supposed to flicker and open. Just during those chimes, that's when it's the most magical and what have you. So just be very careful what you do. Don't hold a seance then. That'd be ridiculous. When you get to where we are now, it's where we came in at the beginning. It's been a solar calendric festival for as long as there's been people alive on planet Earth, because it's tied into exactly when the winter solstice is. So it's a different emphasis. You've got the summer solstice, the winter solstice. couple of quarter days, and that's your year. That frames the whole wheel of the year. So it's technically it's not a festival. It's an actual solid, factual, mathematical, physical occurrence that forms the winter solstice. That's what it is. So it takes it away from everybody, from some super scientist at CERN right through to Gandalf in the woods. Everybody can agree on the winter solstice, but not everybody agrees on Halloween. There's different ways of dealing with that. The Day of the Dead, I think, comes in before our Halloween, and it runs longer.
Technically speaking, I think it depends. Like in Mexico, for example, Los Muertos is the first and the second, I think, of November. So it comes right after it. Yeah. But I don't know traditionally if the whole world is like that. I mean, some of them take their celebrations out for weeks.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And again, where we came in, like the Roman Saturnalia, it just ran for ages and ages and swallowed up a whole load of other things. As soon as one special day goes away, then here comes another one. And then that one goes away, and then here comes another one. And that's how it tumbled.
Yes. But if you start looking at everything that's incorporated, let's look at the Christmas tree, for example.
Okay.
That is considered a form of witchcraft.
Well, absolutely.
And if you're getting into the darker traditions, right?
Well, again, every culture, wherever you look, has a thing which can broadly be called a sky pole. I mean, in Egypt, it's a Djed column. Like I say, it's the pillar of hell in Norse. It's a spire on a church in Christianity. It's a standing stone in prehistory. It's a needle stone, and so on and so on. It's that idea of putting something upright.
Yes.
That is vertical, and it becomes an axis. It becomes a central point, which hopefully it's not completely lost on people that actually what you're doing there is, if you put the tree up at the right time of year, you've actually got that central pole, that central axis up at the solstice. So you have the pole around which all else, revolves.
Yes.
The fact that, somebody back in prehistory probably did that on a big scale, and they probably shoved up like a 70-foot tall, totem pole or whatever. The party bit then carries on.
Yes.
It carries on afterwards. So that swallows up Christmas, etc. Which I think might be where the tradition of, 12th night, where you don't leave any of your Christmas decorations or the tree or anything up at all past the 12th night. Once you get past 12 nights after Christmas, it's all supposed to be down and done and over and dusted. So that's a time period. You're dealing with a fixed cycle there. So I think that's where the origins of the Christmas tree come from. Like I say, Norse Viking, Germanic, which is where Victoria found them. They had these trees alive. I'm not sure it was necessarily a spruce. If you had a particularly prominent spruce tree, I suppose you could build, an enclosure around it, a square, Viking church thing. But they would do it with oak trees as well, ancient trees, yew trees. And well, yew is the tree of death, so that's appropriate for hell. So there was a variety of different. There wasn't one set, way of doing it, as far as I know.
Yeah, because it was also believed that the tree was thought to be a talisman that protected from evil spirits.
Yeah, except for the little fairy that brought the last one back to Santa and said, "What do I do with this?" And she's been stuck up there ever since.
Of course. Of course, a little fairy would do that.
I had to put that in.
As is like Tinkerbell. She's cute but hostile.
I'm not really sure why we ended up with fairies up there. The star makes sense because that's the Star of Bethlehem. That's the comet that the Christians kind of adopted that. But how we ended up with little fairies tied to the top of trees, I don't know.
I know. It's true. It's a big thing, little ornaments. So let's talk about, when we get into the whole, like the darker side of things. I mean, Christmas Eve itself, according to historical findings, was traditionally seen as a time for the restless spirits to walk the earth. And because that's what inspired Charles Dickens when he wrote,
the ghosts, right? The conscience side of it. I'm going to say yes to that, but then you see, the way I look at it, if you look at that type of mythology over the world over time, the dead are always with us. They never go away. I think what was in Dickens' mind was what we said earlier about the threat of death, because you were at that time of year when it was live or die. You know, you either made it through or you didn't, you died. So I think people were very, very keenly aware. And then Dickens does it as well. You know, the empty chair at the table, you know, those that have gone before us, you know, that are missing every time, from, you know, the Celts gathering in the roundhouses, the Vikings in their longhouses, right the way through to the Victorians in their big townhouses. There'd always be that year where there was a chair left over, or 2 chairs left over, or 3 chairs left over. And it's that, you know, it really does give you that sense of a passage of time. And then the church went and did it, where they just remembered people who had gone before. They turned it into a time of remembrance, you know, because you've got the services that take place through the Christmas cycle, you know, where they do midnight mass and they do all this, that, and the other, and that is the continuation of this idea of facing the year that's gone behind you, and then facing the year that's coming ahead of you, where you're going into this new period. So that, absolutely, that's where that emphasis comes from. But I think that's there all the time. You know, there are various different times of the year when people are conscious of, you know, of that. Specifically, the veil fluttering, that's Halloween, but conscious of loss, conscious of those who've gone before us. Absolutely, that's Christmas. The bleak midwinter.
It does. See, it is, but on so many levels, like so much so. I think it was Christmas was banned celebrations in England, Scotland, and Ireland between 1647 and 1660.
That was Oliver Cromwell, the Commonwealth. Oliver Cromwell. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, they were Puritans and they didn't like you having fun. And so that was a big no-no. You know, boo. Bar humbug. So and of course, when Charles II came back, he just that was it. He did away with all that.
Went back to normal.
Restoration.
Have a bit of fun.
Go back. I mean, if you're going into that sort of time period, I mean, 1600s, you've got things like the Christmas in America is different from the Christmas we have here, because you have Thanksgiving. And of course, Thanksgiving, that started as a sort of a feast, if you like, with the settlers in 1621. So you're actually in that same time period. And funnily enough, by default, they're Puritans. So you've got the Puritans going over to America starting it, and the ones over here finishing it. You know, there's a kind of a sort of a tie up. So your Thanksgiving, you know, and the idea of eating turkey. I mean, we eat turkey over here. Well, there's no natural turkeys in the UK. You know, we imported them as part of that whole idea of the settlers and the feast and Thanksgiving, etc. Of course, you're in Canada, aren't you? Not America. But there'll be a lot of people listening from America, so that's where that tradition originates. You know, but it ties into the same period. It's 17th century. You know, there's a lot of things going on there.
Absolutely, it's been interesting to see the evolution when you break it all down, you know. But I mean, the dark side of things, and it says, in the darkest nights of Iceland's winter, they whispered about a creature that nobody wanted to meet, being the Yule cat, a giant black frost-eyed beast who prowled rooftops at Christmas, searching for those who didn't receive new clothes. What, really?
I think it's new clothes, and I think it's shoes as well. So if you didn't get those at Christmas, you could the cat would have you.
Like, so why? That something must have been, if memory serves me correctly, it was something that had to do with the parents, not the children. Right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's enough to scare the bejesus out of anybody. And if it's not bad enough, because it said the strange tradition of grim warning, a perfect glimpse on how old winter folklore used fear, humor, and survival to shape the season. But then you had the Yule lads, also in Iceland. So they would bring gifts to well-behaved children, but the mother, the giantess Graela, devours the naughty ones.
You've always got this both sides of the coin, haven't you? You know, I was really upset when we fitted a gas fire because Santa couldn't get down the chimney anymore, so that was terrible when I was a kid. They bricked up the hearth and put a gas fire on. But there was a whole tradition around Santa. Would he come? Would he not come?
Yes.
Would he drink the whiskey and eat would Rudolph eat the carrot? Would he eat the mince pie? Would he come or not? Because he doesn't come to naughty children, and etc. So it's that good, good and evil. Are you going to be good, naughty, or nice? What are you? Are you on his naughty list or are you on his nice list? And that again, that's the same basic principle that you find with the Icelandic thing. Are you good or are you bad? But I like the idea they've extended it to the parents. I think that's a good idea as well. But then it's a way of reminding the parents that, your kids need clothes. You need to, keep looking after them, I suppose.
Yes. They're definitely interesting tradition. Now, here's one for Scotland. On the Isle of Islay, people once told the story of Crom Duna Noleg. Probably to say it right because I don't have the accent.
Well, Islay's Islay. It's pronounced Islay.
Okay, perfect.
It's got a silent S.
Okay, perfect. And he was a creature like Krampus. So he would scare children into behaving. Legends said that the screams from the chimney used to mark his arrival, even though it was often just the sound of the wind. But the Scottish Christmas monster is mostly forgotten now, and of course overshadowed by Krampus. But when you see this guy, he's got this big skull face with these long horns, and he carries skulls around his belt, and he wears a kilt. And
that makes perfect sense because Scotland at various times in its history was part of Norway.
Oh, see?
That's true. That's part of the kingdom of the Vikings. So what you've got there, that's a perfect leftover from Viking domination of the Scottish Isles and Scottish Highlands. That's what that is. It's a leftover. So that's a really good example.
And that makes sense. Okay, see?
Yeah. There you go.
The dots. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I know this because I am part of said lineage.
Hey.
I know. So I should have remembered that. No. So I mean, obviously there's so much information out there. And on a little by and by too with St. Nicholas. They just recently found his burial. His burial site.
They have found out where he was buried. Whether they found him or not, that's a kind of moot point.
They claim to have, and they actually did a reconstruction of his face. I want to show it.
I saw this.
Did you see this? Yeah. I'll just put it up for a second for people. Well, they did a facial recognition, right? So let's just do this.
I just can't. I'm racking my brains to try and remember where they found him because I don't think it was in Greece. Oh,
Turkey?
Look at that.
Turkey. They figured this would be him.
Turkey.
Yeah.
Well, that's a passing resemblance to Santa Claus.
Not bad. Note the Templar crosses. I like that. There. Yeah. That's always interesting as well. And then here's the other variation.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. Oh, that looks plausible.
Looks kind of jolly. No. Maybe not. Not so jolly.
I can't remember all of the legends associated with the Christian version of St. Nicholas. I think he was a reasonably good guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he was renowned, though, as like an evangelist or a preacher or a prophet or whatever. I just think he was really good at looking after people in his bishopric, in the area that he was over, that he governed. Sufficient enough for him to be extremely well remembered. I don't think there's anything drastic there.
Yeah, it is wild. It is wild. Wayne says looks a little bit like you.
Oh, don't say that. People have been telling me I look like I've lost weight since I got rid of the beard.
I don't
want to go any bigger. I want to go smaller.
Right. Wayne says for a few years when he was quite younger, he made wooden toys for two children that lived up the road where he lived. They didn't have a father, so I would leave the gifts tucked in on the veranda with a card from Santa.
Hey,
Aw,
good man, good
look
man.
at you
I
go.
spoilt it, actually. I blew it, because in this country, again, while we're still on the subject of traditions, what they would do on the Christmas Eve, because you haven't got any presents at this point, was you'd have a sock which you'd leave hanging on the
Yes.
mantelpiece, or
Yeah.
a pillowcase. Now,
Yeah.
in my case, I left a pillowcase hanging over the bottom of the bed, which is very kind of First, Second World War type thing.
Yeah.
And I think I must have been about 8 or 9 years old or whatever. And of course, my dad would sneak in and he would fill it, and then he'd sneak out again. But I caught him sneaking out. And I thought at that age that he'd come in to pinch the pillowcase.
Oh, the
So,
nerve.
so I dove out of bed and apparently rugby tackled him and went, "Oh, you're not pinching my presents," which fortunately he'd already put them in. So they were still in there. Otherwise, they'd have obviously gone scattering everywhere. But then the following day, he said, "Look, I've got to be honest with you. You know, it's me. I'm Santa Claus. I'm the one that's doing this." And I was like, "Well, to be honest, Dad, I've kind of worked that one out."
Oh. Ouch. Ouch.
Ouch. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's terrible.
So yeah. But that's another
Terrible.
tradition as well. I don't know where the sock comes from. You know, where on earth would you get the idea to hang a sweaty sock off the fire?
Yeah,
Around,
it's just like a Christmas stocking.
I've got no idea, because you've got stockings, socks, pillowcases. What was the other ones? There's others. There are other things. Any container that you can hang.
Yeah.
And my stepdaughter actually comes from South Derbyshire, which is a different part of the British Isles. And what they do is they actually don't bother with any of that. They open their presents on Christmas Eve.
We used to do that.
Yeah,
we liked it better. I think it worked good for the parents, because the parents could sleep in the morning because the kids have all their toys.
And the next day, most of the parents are running around doing food or lighting the fire or putting their feet up watching television or whatever, because that's what you do on Christmas Day. Now, that's a modern day Christmas Day. But it means you don't have to worry about sitting there for 2 hours saying to the kids, "You can't open those till after dinner. You're not allowed those till, whatever." Like you say, them going down at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and, tearing all the wrapping off. So I'm quite into this idea now, changing the tradition. I mean, I am, I'm pragmatic. I would, Christmas Eve, great time for opening presents.
Yeah. Wayne says they would hang socks by the fire to dry out overnight. It's normal life, but on Christmas Eve, the same socks were used to hold gifts.
Go on, I'll go with that.
Stinky sock.
Well, I mean, if you're out in the snow or the wet or whatever.
Yes, I know. I was just kidding.
You're going to end up with this horrible wet, vile. Well, it's going to be warm and wet if you hang it over the fire, isn't it? So, imagine getting they wouldn't have oranges, would they, back then? They'd have whatever they.
No, oranges were a big thing too, right? Like a piece of fruit.
Yeah. Second World War, you used to get a penknife, and that's one of the traditions over here, and nuts as well. And it wasn't an orange because they were so scarce. You got a banana. So things have changed. Things have altered over time.
Yes.
Yeah. There was they issued metal boxes in the First World War as well. Mm-hmm. It was one of the Queen's. It was a Queen, I think it's Queen Margaret's gift box. Mm-hmm. And they sent them all out to the troops in the First World War in the trenches with chocolate. Wow. They all had chocolate in them. And they do still occasionally turn up, as like second-hand trophies or whatever over here. Yeah. But that's another idea, like they stopped the First World War to have a football match. You must have heard of the famous, England versus Germany from one trench to another on Christmas Day. They just stopped shooting each other, waved a flag and got out and had a game of football, while it was Christmas. And then on Boxing Day went back to shooting each other.
See, that would be so hard. I mean,
yeah. I mean, how could you?
You're making some mates over here.
Yeah. I seem to remember vaguely that England won. Just to put anybody's mind. I think we won that. But I mean, don't quote me on that. You'd have to look that one up. But that's the power of Christmas. I suppose really, again, that's the magic. You're getting back again now to the magical side of Christmas. It is a very different time than all the other days of the year. It's a time for doing something that is genuinely different. Before they had Marvel comic superheroes and all this kind of thing, everybody was a superhero for a day. That's kind of how it worked.
Yeah, the spirit of giving and kindness. So, I mean, quite extraordinary. When you're looking into things like Yule, however, like Yule, these traditions go back. One of the oldest traditions I found, and I'm sure they go back further, um, origins going back 4,000 years to ancient Egypt, who celebrated the rebirth of the god Horus, the deity of the sky, sun, and moon. And festivity lasted 12 days.
Yeah.
Not one, 12.
Yeah. Not 1, 12. Like I say, it's a period of time.
Yeah.
The further back you go, the more of a period of time it becomes, you know.
Yes.
The Egyptians were clearly a bit longer than the Romans, but they had the same basic idea.
Yes.
Of course, their main deity is Ra, that's the sun. With Isis, you've got the birth of Horus. So that's where that comes in. You're back to your solar deities again. I'm just wondering when the Festival of the Djed column was. I can't remember that off the top of my head. That's quite a difficult one. They had this festival where they would erect an upright column, which is referred to as a Djed pillar or a Djed column. That might be winter solstice. It might be. Oh, the Yule log on the fire. Somebody just whizzed that one up. Yeah. Yes. We still have that. We don't bother with the tree because it brings all kinds of things in, and the stepdaughter doesn't like spiders. So I mean, the worst thing you can do is bring a tree in, because you're pulling spiders off the walls for months after that. But we have a real fire, so we do have a Yule log, and we do it for real. We decorate it in the run up to Christmas. We have it there on Christmas Day, and then we fire it. We fire it in the evening.
Oh, I think that's outstanding. I love that. It's a great tradition. I love it. So basically, I mean, people throughout different parts of the world, like Russia, for example, they had banned Christmas as a religious holiday. 1929, Christmas trees were banned until 1935. And once the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, people were free to celebrate Christmas again. So and their holiday celebrations went from December 31st to January the 10th.
Right. So they're more on the Celtic. They're heading towards the Celtic Christmas New Year. Yes. So they're well into January. But again, you're sort of in the safe zone. If you think of the time running up to midwinter solstice, that's the danger zone, because it's getting darker and darker and darker, and obviously the weather's getting worse, especially, like I said, in the Northern Hemisphere. And once you get past that, once you get into January, you can see, you're into the next year, you're past the shortest day, you've killed and eaten all the livestock that isn't going to make it, you've used up your supplies. So you have party time, so that again, once you get past 12th night, though, once you get, well, I'm gonna extend it a little bit. Forget 12th night. Yes. Once you get past the 16th of January, which for me is the death of it, that's when it ends, because that's when the Celts did it.
Yes.
That night, that's it. Once you get past that, I think Christmas is well and truly done.
Yes. Go on and on and on. I love it, though. But we have to hand it to, I mean, throughout all of the years and the centuries, getting into the Victorian era, what is it about the Victorians? I mean, these are the people who loved picnicking in the cemeteries, just enjoying having, the seances. Like it was a time that was so extraordinary. And I mean, it took us a while to catch up on this side of the world to what you guys were already been doing, probably like quite normal stuff. And we're all like, whoa, this is new and woo-woo. We love it. But I mean, you're looking at the dark traditions, which people thought was a dark tradition of ghostly storytelling. And it's complete fascination.
Well, in the question, implicit in what you've just said.
Anywhere you want to go with it.
Well, you've hit every single. You've hit every
so
single thing there, because obviously no TV, no radio, none of the stuff we've got now. Yeah. So it is a time of year when people didn't go out because the weather was vile. I mean, if you went out and caught a chill on the 1st of January, you could be dead by the end of the week. It was that kind of severity, because they didn't have everything we have in the modern world, but they did have, a socking great big real fire and a nice warm house to live in, and they could tell stories, light all the candles or the gas mantles or whatever was available. My dad actually used to tell a story that he when he was younger, because very, very young, his dad, between the First and Second World War, put a piece of cotton round the tap on the gas mantle. And as he was telling a story at Christmas and being mysterious, he would pull the cotton and the lights would go down, which of course you can't do naturally on a gas mantle. You have to turn the gas mantle down.
Yeah.
So he's pulling this piece of cotton and the whole place is going dark. So it used to terrify the kids, telling ghost stories. So that tradition was around a long time. We're only talking my dad's generation, this idea of telling ghost stories and what have you.
Yeah.
And again, the other thing with the Victorians was this obsession with trying to dig up old traditions. So as soon as they found out that the Yule log was like, pagan symbol of good fortune, you burnt it for good luck for the year ahead. They're like, right, we'll have that. Yeah, that's a good one. We'll include that, And again, Victoria, from very early on, very early in the 19th century, was adding, more and more stuff. She was adding Christmas tree decorations, the fairy on the top, the Christmas tree, and everyone's like, everyone's like, oh, what's she got at Balmoral this year? What's in Buckingham Palace? What's happening this year? And they'd follow that trend because that was all they had, back in the mid-Victorian era. Excuse me, the holly and the ivy and all that. I mean, each one of those has got a sort of an old pagan association of one sort or another. But the Christian association goes in there as well, because what they tried to do was get plants that didn't die. So, you've got holly's there, it's an evergreen. Ivy, it's an evergreen. Mistletoe, oh, look, there's another evergreen. A lot of the decorations are spruce or pine or, again, all the evergreens. So what you're doing there is you're drifting into Green Man territory here. It's the idea that you want to resurrect that energy, that Green Man energy needs to come back. So the whole idea of the marriage of the god and the goddess, when you're going into the winter solstice, the poor old god is dying. You know what I mean? He's not resurrecting, he's going. So you want him to come back. So you're playing with that energy again. So if you like, the time of the Green Man, if anything, is after Christmas is over, because that's when you see the greenery starting to come back, your snowdrops and your crocuses and your daffodils eventually and so on. It's building, that energy's building back up. But that's all the evergreens. That's why you've got all the evergreens.
And then oak and ash were considered sacred.
They are, so you wouldn't really get stuck in. I mean, you wouldn't go chopping things off an oak tree in the middle of winter when it's asleep, because oak trees lose all the leaves and they just go back to being wood again. But that does mean it's easier to spot where the mistletoe is, because all the other leaves disappear and you're left with these huge pom-poms. I mean, I was in Hereford a couple of weekends ago, and they are just covered in mistletoe in Hereford because they grow apples, and all the old ancient apple orchards have just got these huge, saggy pom-poms of mistletoe. And you can see them a mile off. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. So I don't know where the idea of kissing under the mistletoe came from. I don't know where that came from.
I'm not sure. I probably have it in the notes somewhere. So I would think ash and oak, though, would that be, if it's considered sacred, would that not be something you would want to make a Yule log from?
Not sure. I think the associations with oak would preclude oak unless it was dead.
Yes. And
ash is such a valuable commodity in the ancient world. I'm trying to remember who's associated with ash. It's on the Norse staves, the staves. There's a particular rune that is the rune for ash. At which point somebody out there listening will go, "Oh, I know what that is." I just can't remember what it is, but there will be. I seem to get it in the back of my head. There's a reason why you wouldn't burn ash. There's a poem. There's actually a medieval poem about burning wood, and it tells you what you can burn and what you can't burn, because some of the woods, when you burn them, conjure spirits. The smoke and the fire. It's not good. Some of them are not good to burn. I mean, like, you wouldn't burn yew tree, for example, because the smoke's toxic. You're burning poison, in your fire grate. So that's not a good idea.
Yes.
And there's things like that. A lot of the evergreens you can't burn either, because they burn very harsh and very bright, and they spit. So, I wouldn't recommend trying to burn holly. That's not a good one.
No, but mistletoe is good for fertility. Yeah, good for.
Yeah, they used to feed the berries of mistletoe to human sacrifice victims in the Celtic era. So it's slightly hallucinogenic, and it's also got pain-killing properties in it, as well as being sacred. So a lot of the bog bodies, when they've analysed the stomach contents, they've consumed mistletoe within the time frame of them being sacrificed. So yeah, so that's what I mean. You've got to know magically. You would have to, get your herbals out and have a look at what the associations are with these things. Because the wreath. I mean, the wreath that you put on the front door, that's supposed to be evergreen. Oh, there you go. Someone's got it. Oak burns hottest and cleanest and less silt in the chimney. Probably why there are very few oak trees left, actually. They probably didn't burn them all. But that wreath is designed to repel. So presumably whatever you would put in a traditional wreath would drive away evil. So you wouldn't want to burn that. You'd want to keep that around,
Yeah. Yeah, you would think. You would think. Yeah. I don't know. I'd burn it.
Well, I mean, nowadays, you know what I mean?
Nowadays. No, but, I think it's funny because I was just saying last night, I said, I would love to go back into the more ancient, Celtic and pagan ways of some of the traditions, because I think you go back to a time where it was a time of renewal. It was a time of necessity. Opposed to everything being so commercial now. Even in the Victorian age, they still managed to keep things, with a degree of tradition. And I mean, you can still have traditions nowadays. Like, I always used to give, like, my kids, you got, new pajamas to go to bed in. You got, and you got one gift, right, to keep it fun. Because my kids they were party poopers. They didn't want to open their gifts on Christmas Eve. I always did, because I grew up that way. So no, they like waking me up at 5 a.m, but that's okay. It was still dark. I could get into it. My husband and I at the time was like, what is this? It's like, I know. But, it's just you can, and read watch a favorite movie or read a story or whatever the case may be. But I always found it so interesting. Like, even the Victorians would try to carry through something that would still, and of course it helps with no television.
Yeah, but, I mean, everybody thinks the Victorians are like the peak of the industrial age, industrial revolution and all this, with 250 years of industrial development. Well, the other side of that coin is they're also the end of the past. They kept and maintained a lot of things which within the Victorian era died out.
Yes.
I mean, a simple example of that is the Christmas cake. People started making Christmas cakes in the summertime when the fruits were available. They would dry them in the autumn and all that. Yeah. And then they would produce this cake. They'd put alcohol in it. They'd bake it. They'd put it away in a tin. And by the time it got to Christmas time, it was ready to eat. But that Christmas cake would last for 12 months. Jeez. It would never go off. So as long as I mean, there are Victorian Christmas cakes that still survive. They're like 160-year-old cake, So, but the basic principle of that was, if you got one of those or two of those in your cupboard, you weren't going to starve.
This is true.
You got it. You got it. My mum did a fantastic one year, because she baked this Christmas cake in a biscuit tin, because it was the biggest tin she had available. Forgetting, of course, that biscuit tins have lids. They also have lips. So when she came to get this thing out, I can still remember my dad with a set of metal shears having to cut the cake out of the tin, because it wouldn't go past the lip. It was stuck. It was trapped inside. She didn't use a proper baking tin. Back to the Victorians again, they, of course, would have had a metal strip.
They do. That goes around.
With a top and bottom that pops off.
Yes.
Yes. And there's a reason for that, obviously. But like you say, once you start looking at what the Victorians were up to, but they're not just the beginning of the future. They're also the end of the past. And their traditions, fabulous. So here we go. We've got a big one.
Oh, yeah. Jen says, and Zeus. And Zeus is for Odin, summoning. Ash tree is supremely sacred in Norse mythology.
There you go. Told you wouldn't. There's no way you'd burn an ash tree if you were Viking. Yggdrasil. There you go.
Yep, the world tree that connects the 9 realms of existence due to its deep spiritual significance. Some believe the wood would be treated with utmost respect.
I knew you would not be burning ash. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, another getting back to the Victorians, what about those cards? They would get into these bizarre Christmas cards with morbidly humorous designs on, like murdered frogs or insects. And
Yeah.
the more shocking their card was, the more of a conversation it would be. So the more
Yeah.
outlandish the design, which was
Yeah.
all influenced by English myth and folklore, like robins and wrens, would be considered like really sacred, things like that. But they were doing this up until like, I mean, can you imagine being a kid? Like, but anyway, and getting something like that. Like, what is it with this dead bird on the card,
Yeah, and
But
there's little cartoons of, like
yeah,
jousting toads, riding on the
yeah,
back of
yeah,
hares and things like all the sort of medieval iconography and weird, odd, bizarre things going on.
yeah.
I believe I'm right in saying that they started off as conversation starters in probably the
Yeah.
1860s, 1870s. I think it was, I can't remember the name of the publisher. It wasn't Wills and Hepworth, but there's a very famous publisher that did the very first series. And it, I think I seem to remember it was one of them stories where the publisher went, this is a waste of time and money. These will never catch on. So he did a series, I think it was 1860s something or other. And of course, they went like hotcakes. They sold like bananas. So he did the same thing again, and the same thing again. Then it became a tradition that if your partner or a member of the family was on military service, well, of course, then you had all the Zulu Wars, you had the Boer Wars, you had, through the 1870s, the 1880s, the 1890s, 1900, then you had the First World War. The whole card thing just took off like you wouldn't believe because people could send them at the same time as them inventing the penny black and the penny red. So you had the postal service coming in as well in the 1880s. So it just took off. You literally had a card with this funny thing on it, slap a stamp on the back, off it went,
like a postcard service. Almost. That's
they were more like postcards, especially the First World War ones, because you'd have a postcard. They'd even put lace and stick actual organic flowers, pressed flowers and leaves and things on them. They're quite collectible. They're quite valuable, some of the early ones.
Yeah. I love that. Also, as late as 1915, the Christmas annuals of magazines were in high demand for ghost stories.
Yeah, Christmas edition. You'd have what were they called now? They weren't referred to as magazines. They were they started off as the Penny Dreadfuls, which were the broadsheets.
Yeah.
And then they ended up as these bound into books.
Yeah.
They're still knocking around. You still find them. They turn up in antique shops and junk shops and things like that.
I love it.
The Universal Magazine of Knowledge and Pleasure and things like that. They have all these marvelous names for them. I'm trying to remember, there was a specific name for them. Yeah, but the idea was that you would have one of these big books, you would just open it and you would work your way through. I think it was on a Sunday afternoon, mostly for the ladies that would be in the parlour. They would open it and they would go through it, but there were specific Christmas editions. Or you'd have one that would cover 12 months with the Christmas, stories at the end.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So there was also stuff on Santa Claus sightings, current stuff. Like there are paranormal investigators apparently who investigate only this.
Really?
It kind of reminds me, it makes me wonder, we're dealing with like a tulpa sort of thing, like Slender Man, people creating the image because he shows up everywhere. So here's some interesting stories.
There is an actual scientific paper. I know there's one out there that exists that explains how he stops time, and because he's interdimensional, how he can be everywhere all at once. And I'm serious. It goes into Einsteinian mathematics, as to how the whole of time can exist at one place at one time. And it explains how he actually does it. So
I like that whole theory, though.
Yeah,
the interdimensional one.
Yeah.
But here, Santa himself, not so jolly, because it goes back as early as the 50s.
Yeah.
So people kind of wondering, okay, could he be this type of thing? we could go with that one. Could all of these people around the world have actually created a thought form and given him a personality and traits, much like the Slender Man sort of thing, right? Because some of the stories, here's one. It's a story told by a young boy who saw Santa carrying a big brown bag while he was walking down the street and disappeared into thin air.
Wow.
Could still be interdimensional.
Yeah.
There have been tales of Santa being seen in people's homes Christmas Eve, and when he's noticed, he simply disappears. Also interdimensional.
Yeah.
One woman said as a child, she said she had a not so pleasant experience with Santa. Sorry, I'm tongue tied today. She saw him on one Christmas Eve and said she felt certain sense of creeping dread and that he was not at all jovial or jolly. And she said she felt as though he must have looked and known she was there, turned around and looked at her without smiling, and she felt as though he was eerily looking into her soul. It's kind of like God, but there's been all kinds of reports just like this, and people, they just sort of shrug it off. Santa does not like children being up when he visits. The tales continue, so much so that people actually have started investigating the sightings.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I know. Like,
I mean, there's a lot of people that believe that we actually do create. That's what we do. So it starts as an invisible thing that we've seen in our heads or whatever, but then we are one of the few creatures on planet Earth that can use imagination to create something in the real world. We know we can do that physically because that's what artists and sculptors and inventors and scientists, etc., that's what they do. They think of an idea and then they just go and do it. They make it happen. But can that happen in the invisible world? Is that something that we can do in the invisible and the magical realm? Well, obviously, people who are magically inclined will say, yeah, of course it is. That's something we can do. We can bring something out of nothing. We can create from nothing. So I suppose if we keep looking at this jovial red guy with a white beard flying on a reindeer-powered sleigh, if we keep looking at that long enough, then maybe it might become a reality, Who knows?
Well, I mean, I believe in the power of manifestation for sure.
Yeah.
And I know in the case of Slender Man, which is this paranormal being, he was created in a gaming chat room. And people started giving him so many characteristics that there started to be sightings all over the world about Slender Man. And I'm thinking, if they could do that in a chat room, can you imagine somebody like, for example, Santa, who's created on a global scale? For centuries.
Absolutely. which maybe there are multiple versions of Santa. Maybe he comes in whatever version is appropriate for that location and that society in that place. Even maybe at a time that is appropriate as well. Maybe if not everybody keeps it on the eve of the 24th over to the 25th, if there's a different time, maybe he's out for a couple of weeks, not just one night.
The changes, over time with him too. He used to be dressed in green and Celtic, and then he went to the Celtic, like the red, and then he gets into like it changed, and then Coca-Cola, of course, if you want to touch on that in the 70s, right?
Well, the oldest Santa, I think, almost certainly was brown. There's no doubt about that at all. It was interesting, the reconstruction they did of St. Nicholas. That is the dark, muted, pastel colors of dye that they had available then. So really what you're only dealing with two colors at the beginning. You either got off-white, because that's what linen and wool and stuff like that is. It's kind of a creamy white color, or you've got brown, because everything else that Santa would have been brown. The leather would have been brown. It's easy to dye things in different shades of brown. So the original Santa, I've got no doubt whatsoever that he was either white, cream, or brown. That's the color scheme. But then when you start to drift, the green, and strangely enough other colors, because you can occasionally get blues and yellows and things that creep into the image, that's medieval. You're talking about the medieval version of Saint Nicholas. So you moved on now by about 500 years, because then of course the green, he's a forester. He's wearing the same green that the foresters wore, Lincoln green, whatever. because they dyed the costumes with copper. So that's where the green comes from. Moving slowly on, Coca-Cola. I think it was in the 1880s. I'm pretty sure it was again the 1880s when they decided that they needed him to be. I think they just did it for a packaging thing. You know, that's their colour, and they put him on a box or they stuck him on, you know, an advert or something, and everybody just went, yes, that's the right colour. We'll stick with that, you know. And he's kind of been red ever since, you know. The only thing that I found out the other day, though, because we had a quiz when I was over at this Christmas event, and one of the questions was, what colour is Santa Claus' belt? Now, of course, it would have started brown because that's all they had. But now it has to be black. So his big, you know, the big belt that he wears around his middle, that has got to be black for it to be the right colour, apparently. So there you go.
Yeah. So it changes, and to where we are today, the jovial Santa Claus created by Coca-Cola. A lot of people don't realize. I think that happened in the 60s or 70s. I thought it was the 70s. That information I found.
No, it's been red and white since the 1800s, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, the traditional right now with all the big fur, like the Santa we know today.
Yeah, as we see,
you know, that we see. Yeah, that was apparently a Coca-Cola thing that was invented. I thought, so I mean, that's stuck. I mean, we're for 50 years now. We're still going strong.
Yeah, half a century plus.
70, yeah. Oh, yeah, at least that. So then I found, getting back, we're bouncing a little bit.
Okay.
But I just actually only saw this. I pulled this up. So basically, the history of the Christmas tree goes back to the symbolic use of evergreens in ancient times, like you said, but Greece and Egypt. So it goes back Greece and Egypt.
back to the erecting things upright.
Continue the Germans. Yes, candlelit trees traditions were brought to the Americas in the 1800s by German settlers. Ancient times, long before Christianity, people hung their evergreen trees. So everything we've done, the Druids decorated their temples with the evergreens from the Christmas trees. The Egyptians believed that when the god Ra was recovering from illness, which was a time of the solstice, they would fill their homes with temples of evergreen boughs, and it was a cause for celebration. So fruitful farms and orchards. So much along the same idea. The Vikings thought that evergreens were a special plant from the god Balder.
Yeah, because they never died. Yeah. The one that you missed off there actually is the Jewish one, because the menorah is the world tree. You know, the lampstand, they have 7 branches for the one in the temple, and then you've got eight branches for the Hanukkah, which is the Christmas one. The reason for that goes back to the 2nd century BC, when Judah Maccabeus recaptured the temple, rededicated the temple. So they have Hanukkah. Hanukkah is at the same period roughly as Saturnalia, so it can come before Christmas, because they're running on the old Jewish calendar. You see, they haven't changed their calendar in about nearly 6,000 years, so they're running on the same calendar, so their dates tend to move in relation to ours. So I think this year, Christmas and all the festivities are swallowed up as part of Hanukkah, whereas I'm pretty sure it was last year it came first. They got theirs in before ours by quite a long way. But that also is important because, of course, it brings in candles and light, artificial light. It's a festival of light. Hanukkah, that rededication of the temple and clearing out of the nonsense in the 2nd century BC with the Maccabean revolt, that then brought light. It brought, spirituality, power, God back into the holy space. So that really, I think that's the origin of candles. It's nothing to do with the twee Victorian, idea of lighting candles because they look romantic at Christmas. I think it actually goes back more like 2,000 plus years to the relighting of all of the lamps in the temple and the relighting of the menorah, which of course is why they have the extra arm on the Hanukkah light, because that's the one that lights the other 7, because it's all about bringing light in. So that, again, that's another tradition. I'm surprised it didn't list it with those others, because obviously that's Judaic, but it's that then overlaps, you know, because you've got the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Egyptians, the Romans, you know, they're all around at that period of time. So yeah, don't leave Hanukkah out.
Don't leave Hanukkah, probably because I didn't see it.
Oh, you mean it is on the list?
So yeah,
I'm doing this from memory. Come on, you're doing
I
it
know,
from
I know, but you're the historian. I am the humble sage.
Go on, I'll let you off while it's Christmas.
I know. I am the student. You
I'm
are the master.
I'm definitely not the master. Don't go there.
I don't know. I love it. Everything's been so commercialized. What are your thoughts on, you know, everything being so commercialized? Should it go back to basics? I mean, it's been.
Oh.
I just look at a bunch of things. I got, you know, Christianity has a version. Every faith has a version. We have the origins, and somewhere along the line, I mean, as much as some of this is still honored and practiced, so much of it has become commercial. The gift of giving is making people a whole lot of money.
And I think overall, I don't think we've actually talked about anything bad anywhere in the Christmas traditions. It's all good. It's all good. So I think when we're looking at the giving of gifts, I think the giving of gifts, obviously in the Christian world, it's the, you know, three wise men rock up, you know, gold, frankincense and myrrh, shepherds roll up, they're all like happy and joyful and they bring all their animals and, you know, it's all that. So the gold, frankincense and myrrh thing, kind of, that's where the Christian giving of gifts come from, that idea. But that's a very broad and very kind of obscure, and, you know, if that's not your path, it doesn't really make sense. However, again, the serious end, the business end, is that people had needs, you know, they needed stuff. And when the autumn comes to an end and you float into winter, you've got all the materials, you've got everything you need to do with whatever you wish, and you've got the time, because you're not going to be out, you know, doing something when it's 6 foot snowdrift. You can come into the house and do what you need to do to make what you need. So they would do other things. They'd do your clothing, your leatherworking, embroidery, you know, all the cooking, the preserves, everything. All of that is done as autumn turns to winter. So that is the giving of gifts. It's the right, appropriate time to update, you know. Go back to the cat that'll eat you if you don't give your kids clothing. You know, it's that time of year, that it's now. So a lot of the very old, very traditional, hardcore, you know, the good parts of Christmas and winter solstice and the dark days, the good elements of that are wrapped up in the giving of gifts. So I wouldn't get rid of that. I don't think it's right to get rid of that.
No.
Unfortunately, because we live in the modern age, you know, the commercial guys amongst us have jumped on the bandwagon. I don't remember, for example, in my childhood, which is not all that long ago, I don't remember it being as bad as it is now, you know, commercially. And they really go for it. I mean, there's some people nowadays are just saying, look, well, why don't we just buy everything through the rest of the year? Why does it have to be now? You know, why do we have to go through all this, you know, getting into debt and spending all this money and the time and the effort and the, I mean, the whole system collapses at this time of year anyway. Forget ordering anything from Amazon. You know, you might get it by next bonfire night. You know, it's everything just collapses because it can't cope. So there is that in the modern world. We don't have the problem that we had of obtaining things that they had in the past. But by the same token, I wouldn't get rid of it. I think it is part of Christmas. I think gift giving is an important part. I mean, I'm a little bit bar humbug because obviously I know where it all comes from. I know the history. I know what to keep and what not to keep and all that. But I wouldn't give up gifts. I think gifts are good. I wouldn't give that up.
I think, I think, you know, the gift of giving can be done in many ways, you know, and this is just to, you know, because not everybody can afford to go into debt for Christmas, but the gift of giving comes with a lot of, you know, a lot of values as well. I mean, you can give of yourself. You can just, you know, give a story. You know, I've got a family member who loves just gag things if they're homemade, you know.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, just go back to the end of the Second World War. You know, they were unpicking sweaters to get the wool to knit scarves and bobby hats and gloves. And, You know, it's all out there now as well. There's no excuse, because you can find out how to do things like that on the internet. Just you know, go and research it. But that's what they used to do, and that never died out in my lifetime. You know, I mean, I was born my parents were born in the 1930s, so they lived through the Second World War. I was born in the 1960s, but my parents were quite old. You know, they had 30 years of growing up tradition before they had me. So they were quite old fashioned. So yeah, we did lots of stuff like that. We made a lot of stuff ourselves. And then very often, you know, I mean, I got into homebrew. I used to make homebrew years ago, but botanical brewing, where you get like all this fruit and stuff, and it goes fizzy as well as a little bit alcohol. So it's nice. Yeah, it's really nice. Loads of people got bottles of that for Christmas presents. You know.
Yes, the gift of spirits. I like
that. That's it. A bit of Christmas spirit. You know?
I love the idea of storytelling, no matter what you do. I love the idea of, you know, whatever, even playing board games, was watching a Christmas film, whatever the case may be. I think a lot of it is about, you know, unity as well. And I think we live in a time that's so diverse now, cultures, you know, all over the place. Like we're blended communities and blended cultures. And I think there's, you know, so many different belief systems that it may seem different for a lot of folks, but I guarantee that there's something in every culture that has some kind of a celebration in and around certain times of the year that might be similar, you know.
Well, that's the key. You just hit the key. You hit the nail on the head there. Time of the year. You're back to the celestial clock. Nobody, doesn't matter what your background is, or your religious belief, or your culture, or where you live, or whatever, nobody can argue with the patterns in the sky. You know, if you're on that particular day and it happens to be the solstice, and you know, this year it's the 21st or whatever, it's the same for everybody. And you're absolutely right. They should all have something that will cluster around those days, say between the 21st and the 25th. There'll be something in that block, because you're either coming to it, hitting the solstice, or dropping off from the solstice. So really, we did a good job of laying the foundations at the beginning of what we were chatting about, because it's still true. It's still true now. It's you know, it's the same.
Yes. And I love that. So I think this was a fantastic segment. We kind of touched on so many different things, as we always do. So what do you have? What do you have coming up? Because you just did something, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
And for your birthday, happy belated.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Another year older, back to the passage of the sun again. You know, another pile of seasons. Well, this year I did about 5 different events down at this Viking Longhouse, which is in Hereford, called the Mead Hall, and we did loads and loads of different things. I did a couple of Templar conferences. I did some live gigs, some markets. Anyway, that's ballooned. That's taken off. I think there's 9 events now, right through the year, that's booked in to that one site alone. So, you know, get a couple more and I'll be down there every single month, you know. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm going down there because we have a thing called Hammerfest, where we have a festival of all the remastered Hammer movies, the Hammer horror movies, because we're all fans. We love it. There's loads of us that are fans. That's going official next year. So I would say to folks, if you want to know what the dates are, because we're opening that up to the public, we've got 2 Templar conferences. There are 2 other dates. The UFOs and Progressive Rocks, the Close Encounters of a Progressive Rock Kind, is coming up in May. That's sold out in 3 days. It's gone. We've got no tickets for that. So there's another one coming up at the end of the year, which we're still planning. So I can't really say much about that. But watch Facebook. You got to watch it like a hawk, and all these things will keep, you know, popping up. I recorded a TV show as well called Beyond Myth. I did 6 episodes for them a couple of months ago. That's being edited up and everything. So I'm assuming that's going Sky direction, Sky History, or it's going to end up on over here, Blaze or Quest or whatever. That I think will be out by the spring. So that's coming up. So there's that. You know, I'm writing another book. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'll have something coming out. And
can you tell a little bit about that said book? No.
well, everybody knows that the King Arthur book took a stupidly long amount of time for me to do. 45 years to get that into print. Well, I started this one the year after that, so I started this one in 1978.
Wow!
And it's like all the bits that's relevant, that's biblical, or Knights Templar, or Da Vinci Code, that kind of direction. It's all the bits that they left out or that you can't get hold of. So now you know why it's taking so long for me to do it. So I've got all the regulars are in there, like Dead Sea Scrolls, Nag Hammadi Library, Lost Gospels, Gospel of Judas, all that.
Yeah.
All that material's in it, but there's a ton of other stuff as well. And when you cluster that together, obviously, it brings up other issues. And I've got it in mind to try and have it ready for sort of the end of 2026.
Wow.
So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Well, I hope you do, because I know it'll make for a great segment. Just saying.
Oh yeah.
Might have to
pen that one in for December next year.
Yeah, we'll have to do that and probably put a part 2, knowing the way you write.
It's going to be a big one. It's another
That's
big
what
book.
I mean.
Yeah.
It'll be a 2-parter, I think, for sure. But I thank you for coming on. It's always so much fun, just hanging with you and having a parlay about all of this interesting stuff.
It went very well.
And
I mean, in terms of advertising, I think folks know how to get hold of me. I'll do the adverts, get the advert out of the way. All my books are on Amazon. So just type my name in. They're all on Amazon. If you want any back catalogue of stuff, if you want to see what I've done in the past, interviews, TV, all that, it's all on YouTube. And if you want to come and find me, I'm on Facebook. Keep it simple.
Yes. Go find him.
Go find me.
Very informative and entertaining at the same time, which is wonderful. But thank you for joining me. And I hope you do have a terrific Christmas. And now I want a Yule log.
Oh, go make one.
Yay.
Anyone with a real fire, you just have to pick the sexiest looking log and just decorate it. Go nuts. Put loads of stuff on it. A few bits of evergreen and what have you, and tinsel and a bit of snow down the top. Sit it in the middle of your fireplace. Make the fire, build the fire so it's ready to be lit. And plonk it right bang in the centre of the fire. And then when it starts going cold, Christmas Eve, and it starts tailing off, light it and off you go. And it'll bring fantastic good luck for the next year. That's the point.
I love it. For good fortune and yes, I love it. Well, thank you. And everybody who has been in the chat room, thank you all. You always make it so interesting. And I thank you for your comments. As you see, we've been putting them up and we've read some of them off. So thank you. Tomorrow night on The Outer Realm welcomes fellow UPRN host of the Gateway Podcast, C.L. Thomas. We're going to be discussing her experiences in Ullage, high strangeness in the Mojave Desert. Oh, yeah, there's lots of stuff in the Mojave. Let me tell you what. And Thursday welcomes for the first time Polly Rotterman, who is an ET experiencer, but she's going to be sharing her journey with the mantis. Yes. Beings that she calls the tent people hybridization program. Yep, that's going to be a thing. So you're going to have to tune in. It's going to be a really interesting week with interesting guests. And of course, you guys always keep it interesting. So again, thank you all. Thank you, Mark. Thanks to everyone in chat.
Happy Christmas to everybody.
Goodbye, everyone, and good night on the other side of the world.